Ars Electronica home delivery. While you still can't come to us, we come to you via live streams from the Ars Electronica Center. My name is Michaela, and it's a pleasure to me to welcome you for this episode live from Deep Space 8K, our projection room here at Ars Electronica Center. And for today's episode, I have prepared 3 wonderful projects for you that focus on Upper Austria. Upper Austria is one county, one province of Austria, and the capital is Linz. But today's presentation will also focus on 2 technologies that help us to preserve cultural heritage in a digital way. And first of all, let me take you to Enns. Enns is a town in Upper Austria, right where the river Enns flows into the Danube. And Enns is quite famous because a Roman legion camp was there some 1,800 years ago. One of the biggest legion camps in the province of Noricum. Noricum was the province where Upper Austria was located then. And behind me, you can already see an excavation site. An excavation site of a Roman lime kiln. And it's a special project here because what you see is actually a 3D laser scan. So I will put on 3D glasses. The cool thing is now at the moment, you can see the picture behind me as a double image. That's, of course, because of the 3D projection, but our other camera also has 3D glasses in front of the lens. So when we switch to the other camera, you will have a 2D perfect, sharp image here. And the reason why I'm holding an Xbox controller is simply that with this, I can navigate through this 3D scan. So I'll put on my 3D glasses now and go into the background, and we switch to the other camera. So parts of Upper Austria became a Roman province in the middle of the 1st century AD under the Emperor Tiberius. And the border was the Danube, so the so-called Danube limes. And along the Danube there were some fortresses, Roman fortresses, to secure and defend the border. And here in Enns there was, as mentioned before, a Roman fortress, a legion camp of the Legio Secunda Italica. And in the heyday of this legion camp, about 25,000 people lived there. And of course, the Roman Empire was actually quite an advanced, technologically advanced civilization. And the lime kiln that you see here might look a bit primitive, but this is a very, very sophisticated technology. So we can enter this lime kiln, and now just imagine what the people did here was that they put limestone into this in layers, and in between there was wood and coal, and then they fired the whole thing. It was closed here at the front, and over the next 3 days the special chemical reaction took place, and out of limestone became lime that the Romans could use for buildings. Especially they used it for producing their opus cementitium, the Roman concrete. And now as we are inside this lime kiln, you can see that a 3D laser scan consists of point clouds. Each of these tiny points here is a very, very accurate point of measurement. And outside you might have noticed that there are little devices on tripods. These are the laser scanners. That's quite a useful technology because the laser scanner is a small device, yeah? And it sends out laser beams into every direction, and it can very accurately measure in which distance to itself the laser beam encounters an object. And like this, you scan three-dimensional objects or even a whole landscape, buildings. And this is a wonderful technology to digitalize excavation sites as well, to document each of the phases of excavation. Yeah, and the Roman legion camp existed between 200 and 500 AD. And that was really an interesting era of the city, of the town of Enns. And maybe you might have the opportunity to get there once. It's really worth a visit. The town is really beautiful, and they have a museum there of the Roman remains, also of finds, archaeological finds of that time. Because what was also interesting, this is only one of 12 lime kilns that were excavated. And one of them, for example, was used as a garbage bin, more or less. So they dumped garbage into it, and 1,800 years after this, it was excavated, and there were even beautiful artistic artifacts found, like a little Hercules statue, and in this dump they also found bones of animals, ceramic shards. So it was quite interesting also, what the Romans threw away to tell about the culture. One excavation site that we have scanned here. And by the way, there was a national exhibition, or provincial exhibition of Upper Austria in 2018 that really focused on the limes at the Danube. But another excavation site I'd like to present to you is in Hallstatt. Hallstatt is also quite famous and very popular because that's a really, really old culture. In Hallstatt, we have findings that date back to 5,000 before Christ. So in Neolithic times, there were already settlements in Hallstatt. And then there was the very famous Hallstatt age between 800 and 400 BC. And one of the reasons why Hallstatt was so interesting for early settlers was mainly that there are salt mines there. And then in Roman times, salt was also important, of course, and so here we have an excavation site of a Roman building. And as you can see, it is not so easy quite often in modern places to even get a permission to excavate sites, because there are buildings already and they are in use. And Hallstatt is a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site, so you have to get permission to dig something up, because many buildings are protected. And the Romans had quite an interesting and with the same modern technology when they built their villas. They had floor heating, for example, beautiful frescoes on the walls. By the way, there is also a villa that was excavated in Enns, the House of the Medusa, it's called, because there were wonderful frescoes discovered there. Yeah, so another excavation site, and you can see how nearly photorealistic laser scans look like when you take a look at them from a distance, and when you get closer, you can see the individual points, of course. What you can also see here are these white balls on tripods, and these are markers, more or less, because the scans have to be done from several locations to scan a big site like this. And then you have several data sets, of course, and to put them together into one data set, you need these markers here so that you know where one data set ends and the other one begins. Yeah, and Hallstatt, anyway, is very popular because of the beautiful landscape. It's really very scenic, located at the Hallstatt Lake and the mountains in the background, which we really appreciate here in Austria, and also tourists do this. And by the way, a second Hallstatt was rebuilt in China, so more or less as a, like a Hallstatt Wonderland, Disneyland. Okay, so 3D laser scanning as a digital opportunity to preserve cultural heritage and also to document the stages of excavation sites. So, and next I'd like to travel across the Danube with you into the so-called Müllviertel, one of the quarters, the 4 quarters of Upper Austria. And in Müllviertel there is a little village called Käfermarkt. And Käfermarkt is famous because in the church Saint Wolfgang in Käfermarkt, there is one of the last 3 wooden altar pieces of the late medieval times. So here we have a gigapixel photography of the altar piece in Käfermarkt. It's a photo where we can zoom in, really extremely high resolution. And I think it's obvious now what makes this altar piece so special. We're on the threshold of the Gothic era to Renaissance. So you can see influences of both styles. It's a carved altar piece, and one of the last 3 remaining ones, because another altar piece similar to this is in St. Wolfgang, also in Upper Austria, and another one in Krakow in Poland. And the reason why these altar pieces could not survive is simply a biological one. It is the common furniture bug, the woodworm, that damaged most of these beautiful wooden altar pieces. So, and as we're zooming in, you can take a look at the 3 main statues here. This is Saint Peter. You can recognize him because we can see the keys in his hand. Then the next one is Saint Wolfgang, typical Upper Austrian saint. And legend says that St. Wolfgang was a hermit, and after years he decided now then to build a church in St. Wolfgang at the Lake Wolfgang, and to decide where to build this church, he threw an axe down from the mountains into the valley, and here you can see the axe which is the symbol for St. Wolfgang, the axe in the roof of a church. And one of my favorites on this altarpiece is Saint Christopher, carrying little Jesus. And of Saint Christopher I have an extra detailed photograph, because this face is really so elaborately carved, so skillfully and artistic, with the expression on his face. Oh, it's not the face. Sorry. It's his legs. Here he is. Yeah, and actually this altar was painted with distemper, and in the 19th century, when it was renovated, all the paint was removed. If you ask me, in my opinion, that was not such a bad idea, because now you can see the lime wood here, beautiful structure also in the wood. You can see, by the way, holes here on Jesus' feet, tiny little holes. These are the traces of woodworms. Yeah, and so it is really, it's like a miracle that this beautiful altarpiece could survive, could be preserved. And yeah, if ever you come to Käfermarkt, don't miss out this masterpiece of late medieval arts. So, and with this, already at the end of this short presentation of this episode live from Deep Space 8K, I say thanks a lot for joining us, and yeah, I'd like to welcome you again for the next presentations on Tuesday. Goodbye and have a nice weekend.